Hey flower friends, this morning we're going to take a walk through the gardens, see what is blooming and doing great this first week of August. And these are things that you may be able to incorporate in your garden for August blooms. So let's take a walk through the garden. You can see one of my roses, my European rose, and yeah, that's growing amongst the Zinfandel paniculata hydrangea. Now that's been there about 5 years, maybe 6 now, and it is really hitting its stride. Now I've pruned it up where it's more of in a tree shape and less of a shrub. And so it's probably 6 feet tall, and it's up in a garden bed that steps up behind me. And so it's kind of on a hill. But that will continue, starts out white, and then it turns a nice, beautiful shade of pink and darkens through the rest of fall. The pink color darkens. So that is just a gorgeous one. It is no longer available in commerce. I do not know why Proven Winners stopped carrying it, but it has outperformed all my other paniculata hydrangeas. So it is a winner in my book. So yeah, that's just something that you can add to your garden, paniculata or paniculata, however, I want to say pina colada really, but yeah, those are panicle hydrangeas, and they like, I say full sun in my garden. Now I wanted to say something here that I think is very important, especially for new gardeners. Now, flowers that you can grow in August does not always go by your zone. I am in the mountains of Northern California. We can have very warm days. This summer has been very mild. The highs are barely reaching 90 on some days, but most of the time it's been in the 80s, which is just fabulous. But at night it can dip down. Like this morning, it was barely 50 degrees, so it was very chilly. And that's our conditions here, whereas you may have warm nights. We're arid, you may have humidity, so that can affect what you can grow. So your best bet is to look around your neighborhood, ask at your local garden centers what does well in your region in your garden or in August. So I had to put that in there because so many people rely on zones, and zones can vary so widely as far as conditions that it really is the zone. That only tells you what's winter hardy. And that doesn't affect what you can grow in August. It just, yeah, so I have a whole video on what garden zones mean. Now, many people in Europe, other areas, they don't use garden zones. And yep, also another thing that's important to know, especially with roses, and I'm sure with other plants too, is the intensity of the sun, the UV rays. Now, at different latitudes, that changes, and it can have effect on what grows well, and even the colors of some of your flowers, especially roses, may be more intense in some areas rather than others. So anyways, so this one over here is my limelight. Now you see the flowers are not as big as that one over there, and they're coming in later. I'm not sure every year that's done that. I think I pruned this one later in the spring. And so that one I had pruned last fall because I didn't want it get broken down by our heavy snows. And this one I pruned this spring. I was testing how it worked here because, like I said, you have to experiment with your plants to see what works best in your garden. Like with roses, I have to prune in fall, late fall, early winter, not spring when most people tell you to prune. And that's because of my local conditions. The heavy snow will break any canes, that may be weak, spindly, whatever. And if I don't prune them back in the fall, they will break, which is worse than pruning that early. And the difference is, so figure out what works for you. Alrighty, now you see, look at this. This is my Hydrangeum or sea holly. and it's just doing beautiful. This year so far, the gophers have not eaten it, but I've had to stake it up. This is what this is for. And I haven't tied it to the stake yet to keep it upright better. I just love this color. That color is so gorgeous. We're going to go on that side where the bench faces my driveway, or not faces my driveway, but the bench is, and where our driveway is. So let's turn the camera around and we'll take a look. You know what? Maybe we'll do one plant over here, another plant. I'm pretty sure you can see that right there. That is a garden phlox. Now, I don't know. I think it's Nikki, Nikki. And it's the most beautiful purple. It blooms later in the season. That one's been blooming for about 2 weeks. It's still going. It will keep going if I deadhead it. And I have another one there, and I have another one over there where I have divided it and put it in other spots in the garden. Because getting later into August, September, the fall time, there's many things that are going over. Even these daisies here in front of me need a good deadheading because the first flush of blooms is dying back, fading, and to revive it, to get, let me see if there's any more buds on it. Yes, there are. There's other buds, and those will bloom too next and keep this blooming. So that is to phlox, paniculata hydrangeas or panicle hydrangeas. Daisies deadheaded, they'll continue to bloom. Black-eyed Susans, you'll see more black-eyed Susans over there, and we'll take the camera that direction. And I don't know if you can see up here. Before I move this camera entirely, my bee balm. You see up here? This bee balm is not as full and as red. It's kind of dulled down, and that's because it's dying back. I will prune or deadhead some of these back. I'll leave some because the hummingbirds still are loving what petals are open, and so I don't want to just cut them all off. And then I should get a rebloom, but I'll get you up closer later, or in a minute. But right there, between the phlox and the Monarda bee balm, is some asters. They are wild native asters to here, and they will open to a beautiful lavender color. So that is something I have too that blooms later in the season. The buds, I probably will see blooms in 2 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks on that. And I will note this is August 5th. So I will come back and I will look and see if it's 2 weeks or more on the asters. Now, can you see these? Yes, you can. Crocosmias. These are a bulb, not a perennial. And they can be very prolific. Some people consider them a little bit of a bully. I haven't had any trouble with them being a bully. Now, the bright red, they come in orange, and I think there's a yellow one. I think the one I have in back is the orange one, but it sure looks red to me. And yeah, they bloom beautifully right now, and a hummingbird favorite. If you want hummingbirds in your garden, you will want to plant some crocosmias. They love them. Okay, they also love the bee balm. Oh, behind the bee balm, I didn't know, I forgot to mention that, is a native garden phlox. And you see how much taller it is than the others. But it's a beautiful lavender, and it just blooms gorgeous this time of year. So, find out what's native in your area. Natives, pretty much tough, and they don't always, not all natives do well in a cultivated garden. They do better out in the wild because of the conditions they enjoy. But some of them will do just beautifully in your cultivated garden. So, back here, it smells so sweet. I will tell you in a minute what that scent is. Sadly, you're not smelling it. But look at these cone flowers. These are the native perennial echinaceas, doing beautifully. This plant seeded itself. I let it go and just be, even though this is like the front of the border, and I didn't want a tall plant here. I wanted something shorter. But you can't beat plants that plant themselves, and when they want to be there, they will be healthy. Back here is my hot raspberry buddleia. Buddleias are really great. There are the hybrids that are not, they don't go to seed, so they're sterile hybrids, so you don't have to worry about them. Even certain varieties that are sterile are allowed in states that have banned buddleias. And because they don't go to seed and don't spread, I've had no issues with any of my buddleias spreading anywhere. So there are seeds you can get to grow buddleia, but I wouldn't recommend them because those are the ones that spread. Yeah, hot raspberry, it has been blooming for about 2 weeks. And as long as I deadhead and keep it, deadheaded, then it will continue blooming until first frost. More rudbeckias, black-eyed Susans are right there, blooming away. Also a self-seeded perennial and doing gorgeous. I have some pink lilies back here that are about to open. I think they're stargazer. And yeah, just the gorgeousness in the garden. Lilies, oriental lilies are a beautiful addition to your garden that blooms later in the season for me. Now remember, conditions dictate when your ones, if you planted lilies, will bloom for you. If you live in Texas or other warmer or southern states, you probably have already had them bloom and they're now done. We're talking my conditions here in the mountains. So let me move you over here and I'll show you what is smelling so gorgeous right now. So right here, this is what is giving this that beautiful scent. I can smell it all the way over in the Rose Cottage garden. And yeah, it's a little overpowering when you're this close, but look at these lilies. These are Casablanca lilies next to my Cleome. Doesn't that pairing is just gorgeous? I didn't plant it. The Cleome I had left, I killed most of my seedlings. Don't ask. Yeah, the few that I had that lived, I planted a couple here. I didn't know where I was going to plant them. That's my point. And I didn't deliberately plant that together with these lilies, but I think the pairing is gorgeous and I'm going to take note of that. So beautiful. Now I still have another phlox. This was an early blooming phlox down here. The first flush, I pruned it back and now it's blooming again. Just beautifully. It's very airy. This one is not as, it's a different one. This is a Proven Winners selection, and it blooms earlier than my other garden phlox that bloom this time of year and closer and on into fall. So those are beautiful. Down here we have my perfectly Picasso Veronica that is blooming beautifully. This one has been blooming for a few weeks, several weeks, and then I just prune it back. You see how it blooms from the bottom to the top? And so I prune it back when it's just the tips that are blooming. And see, this one's it's way down here, so it's got lots to go. It will put out more blooms. Sun's coming through, so there's going to be a little glare. But I wanted to share with you the Gaillardias are still going strong here, and that is a perfect plant to take us on into fall. Perennial, very easy to grow, and yeah, just prune back the little furry balls. That is the seed heads. They're kind of spiky, so wear gloves when you do so, but this will continue to bloom on through to fall, to first frost. And there's different colors of oranges, and there's even a burgundy colored one. And so yeah, another gorgeous selection perennial that will take you on through fall and is beautiful for August. Right here, look at my roses putting in another flush of blooms. Roses are perfect to carry the garden through the summer. Am I blocking the rose? I'm blocking the rose. We can't have that. Let me move back. So here are my roses. These are my LD Braithwaites. I don't know if they're still available. David Austin roses, they retire certain varieties, and you may have to do a search, but you could probably find it somewhere else if they don't carry it. But I have 2 of these left. I used to have 3. I had a whole hedge of them here, and through the years things have happened. Gophers mostly. And I have lost one. But over there, I have Darcy Bucelle. Let me see if I can take it. And Darcy Bucelle's right over there. It's a little bit deeper red and a little more to the blue tones. And yeah, that's another gorgeous one. And they're all doing beautifully. I planted all of these back into the garden bed, thinking I had my gophers under control. I still think I have control. I still have them, but they're not as thick and as damaging as they have been in the past. And that's what one of the things they were eating was my roses. But yeah, they are just really doing great this year. I made sure to take care of them and feed them organic again. I use an organic liquid fertilizer that gives them a slow nurturing feed. There's not a real big, heavy, hard feed. And that just keeps them healthy. It's kind of like how nature does it. And I don't have mulch in here, which helps to feed the soil. And I've got to get some ground covers I want to put in here. I'm starting to put in different thyme, varieties of thyme. And there's a sedum I have that stays real low that I'm going to plant in here. I like using ground covers instead of always having to buy mulch. Now on this bed, there's a whole host of things that we've mentioned before, but this is Sahara Mix Rudbeckia. It's very different than the other standard Rudbeckia with the bright yellow. This is beautiful. I have different colors from a packet of seeds that I absolutely love. I'm going to do more of these to place in other parts of the garden. This daisy is a crazy daisy that needs to be deadheaded, pruned back. It is done. I don't think these ones rebloom very well, but back here, taking its place, is a Mystic Spire Salvia. Now for many people in many areas, this will bloom from June on through till fall. I get a later bloom because of our very cool conditions at times. Our last frost date is the end of May. Our summers do not always heat up enough. They love the heat. And our nights stay very cool. So it's a later bloomer for me, but a beautiful bloomer. So salvias are gorgeous for the August garden. I'm going to point you down a little bit more. And this is, I think, Victoria Falls. I'll look it up. Salvia. So another salvia that's doing just gorgeous and filling in this time of year. All my salvias, except for my meadowland sages, are blooming later. And that's because of our cool conditions. My Nepeta, this one, I pruned back and now is sending out a fresh flush of blooms. I pruned it back probably 2 weeks ago. Back here is another phlox. Let me move this back out of the way. But right here is another beautiful phlox. I don't know the name of this one, but this one I do want to divide and get more of because I absolutely love this color. And here's another bloom coming up. So if I keep it deadheaded, like this one is needing deadheading, it's pretty much done. And I will go back, like there's a side shoot right there, I'll just trim it back to there and that will put on more flowers. So yeah, and it's growing under the block wall. Last year I tried to divide it. I'm going to really try much harder this year. I don't want to lose it, but I'll dig up part of the root and that's how I will propagate it. But again, phlox for the August garden. So over here, let me get over here. A lot of plants are flapping over. This penstemon's almost done. So, but I wanted to share with you this. Let me get this out of the way. But look at this double Rudbeckia. And there's different flowers. Some of them have fallen over. But you see how one is very fluffy mop head and this one just has the double blooms. And this one too. This is a different plant. So obviously I had thrown the seeds over here. But look at this one. Aren't these gorgeous? I do need to stake these. Now these have been competing for sun over here. These irises I need to dig out and to divide. And all of that. So another gorgeous plant for the August garden. More Rudbeckia. So I was just sharing with you all the different varieties of one flower type that really make the garden interesting, but they do well at this time of year. More of the Sahara mix. You see how this one's very similar to the one I showed you, but look at this color. Isn't that fantastic? And these have been blooming for 6 weeks and just hanging on to the flowers very long. Now this one, you see this one needs to be deadheaded. And that one I'll cut back and that will, promote more blooms and that will carry on till first frost as well. Now this one down there, that is a dwarf agapanthus. I wished I wrote the name down. I did not, but when I spotted this in the garden center last fall, I had to have it. There's another one a little bit further down. Oops, sorry. A little further down right over there. And that one is a division where I had bought 2 plants and I wanted 3 going across. And that one I divided, and the other one of it is on the other side of that rose, and it's doing beautifully. Fewer flowers than this one, because this one I did not divide, but it was a successful division, and so I got more without spending any more money. And this one has surprisingly just wowed me, and for me, it blooms later. It just started blooming last week. So I wanted to share with you, this is my Eden rose growing on the arbor. And then here, this cane that I trained along the fence is filled with buds. Each one of these coming up has got roses on it, and I'm going to have this side as well as the other side is going to be covered with these gorgeous pink roses. I love Eden rose. Now, my plan is to plant a couple of more pink roses with this, because this gives sporadic blooms. Love them. But I would like to plant others, like I have a Kiss Me Kate that I had to dig up from out back. I think I'll put it on this side, and then the other side, I think Lavender Lassie, which are both very prolific bloomers when this one is not blooming. So I will have continual blooms on this arbor, and I don't think they'll compete. I think they'll just complement each other perfectly. Roguchi clematis. This thing blooms throughout the summer. I need to get over here and deadhead it so I'll get more buds, but there's buds all over it as well. So this will carry me with bloom for me through, this will bloom for me through August up until first frost. It just does not stop. Other clematis have a shorter blooming time. Roguchi is one of those that keeps on blooming. I wanted to make sure I mentioned this is Roseanne hardy geranium. This thing just gets better and better through the summer. This thing will carry on through frost. And yeah, it's just beautiful. I have it here. It's obscuring our sign, but that's okay because I love the color of this. This, once it starts blooming, it doesn't stop. Many other hardy geraniums will bloom in flushes, and you prune them back and you get more blooms. But look at my limelight's coming through here and poking its head over here. I love that. Now also in here, I have a dinner plate hibiscus, and it's just now starting to come up. It usually, because of our climate and conditions, does not bloom until almost September because of our cool nights. Hardy hibiscus need nighttime temperatures of 60 and above to bloom well, and we've had very little of that this summer. So that is why that takes so long. And it's kind of my last hurrah of summer, and I don't mind that it blooms so late. And it just comes up amongst all these other plants. So it's not really hogging the space. It just comes up from the root, it dies back to the ground, comes back from the root each year, and then blooms for me come September. That's one thing the deer really love, so I'm glad it's behind everything else that they don't love. So this right here, for me, Coreopsis, it needs a good deadheading, but there's still tons of blooms on it. And when I deadhead it, there's a bunch that went to seed here. I need to collect these seeds. Then once I deadhead it, it'll keep blooming. This one will keep blooming with deadheading on through till frost. And so I see a bunch of new buds coming up down here as well. So another great one for the August garden. And yeah, it grows in a wide range of conditions. This out here, this part of the garden gets very little water, and it seems to do best in this. It doesn't get as floppy, etc. Now, a lot of times, many drought-tolerant or plants that prefer drier conditions, they will flop with more water. Like even with my black-eyed Susans, the ones that are out here on the edge of the garden that doesn't get as much water, the stems are sturdier. So the lush growth from the extra water can create a little floppiness, but they're super easy to support. I have a video on making plant supports, very inexpensive, that you can just stick in the garden and have them stand up. How about yarrow? Yarrow, even though this is faded, it started out more fuchsia pink. I can trim it back and it'll re-bloom. And yeah, this is a beautiful one in the August garden. You see here some more of my rose geranium I have over here where it can scramble through the roses and stuff. So this is the beginning of Rose Cottage Garden. So I have a lot of perennials in here and a lot of roses, but most of them are ones that you have seen. So I won't repeat flowers that I've already done for your August garden. Now down here is another sage or salvia. It's in a fuchsia tones. This is going. I don't want it in the Rose Cottage Garden. But here's interesting, something interesting for me. This is a paludism daisy. Now, it is supposedly like spring and early summer blooming. And I have several. I have 2 different varieties, but I have several plants. Now, some of them have died back and gone to seed and whatever, and then others have continued to bloom. And this one is looking great, so I'm not sure what's going on. This is my first year growing them. So I need to observe, see what's going on with them, why some are still blooming and doing beautifully. I don't know if this one started later, it could be. I'll have to look through my videos. But others, they are looking pretty scruffy. I'm leaving them in the ground. They could reseed, and I'm hoping they do. If not, this is something I'm definitely rebuying next. Here, I found them in late winter, early spring. So, in a 6-pack. So I bought 2 6-packs, and I may buy many more. If, the 6-packs were pretty cheap, like $6 a piece. And even if they were a little bit more, I would buy more. So if I spent $20, you could see how much I could get. And they have performed from spring on through now, even though some of them are looking a little withered. And I don't know, maybe they got less water than this one did. Maybe because I have a drip system set up. Maybe they're in spots that don't get as much water and they're shallower rooted, so they couldn't go down and get water. But yes, that's something that this one looks like it's going to perform right through September for me. So that's a maybe. Tell me how paludism daisies have done for you. Now, I said I was going to share with you a rose that never has failed to continue blooming through the summer, and that is Jubilee Celebration. This is a David Austin rose, and the scent is gorgeous. The abundance of blooms is gorgeous. I have not had a David Austin rose that performed like this for me in the garden. It has just been gorgeous, and it's nonstop. Plenty more buds coming. So as I go through and deadhead the ones that are falling apart, shattering, then I have plenty more coming. Now I'm going to, in the next video, if not right before this one, we'll see which one I do first. I'm going to share with you some changes I'm making in the Rose Alley, Rose Cottage Garden, and I'll share with you what's blooming right now. There was a tiny lull in blooms for many of the climbers. Some of them continued on, but there's some gorgeous ones going on right now. And yeah, this is one of them. And this one got very tall this year, though it's not throwing out the super tall canes that I think I need to put an arbor up for it. I may put a shorter obelisk here that I can train it onto, because it's really needing support, and I have kind of a flimsy support for it right now. And the stems get such heavy masses of blooms that it tends to want to flop over. And yeah, I need to cut it maybe shorter, and maybe I can enjoy the blooms and looking down on them. I'm not sure what I'm going to do there, but I could just put an obelisk and train it around it too. So I'm looking back to see if there's anything else to share with you that's blooming gorgeously. Here's another Eden rose back here on here. This one's getting moved, definitely getting moved, and I'm going to put something different here because I have the 2 Edens up front I get to enjoy, and with a small garden, I want to be able to enjoy more varieties of roses. And yeah, so this area is going to get, like, these daisies are coming out. We'll make room for another rose. Can you hear the birds singing? And then there's daisies up there. They have become much too large, and yeah, their height hid some of the roses. So I will replace them with something else that blooms white, or maybe put in another Roseanne hardy geranium that scrambles along the ground so that the roses are not obscured. And I have some more Casablanca lilies right there too. But that's in the next video as far as doing something in here as far as improving it. Just a little bit of a revamp. And you will notice as things start to fill in that you do need to change things from time to time. And the roses were all self-seeded. I let them do their, not the roses, I'm sorry, the daisies. And now it's time to take them out. It's no great loss, no great cost, because they just were something that seeded themselves. They are beautiful unto themselves, but they're not performing here like I want plants to perform. And the hummingbirds are fighting over that feeder. Okay, on to, I wanted to share with you the delphiniums over there. Because this area gets a little bit more shade, or it could be the variety of delphinium, these always bloom later than the others in the back secret cottage garden. And they're a beautiful Wedgwood blue. So if you see those right there, those gorgeous blue delphiniums, now they're not as thick as they have been, so I need to check and make sure the gophers are not nibbling the roots. But these are the New Zealand delphiniums. That's the company name now. It used to be Dowdswell. And you can order seeds and start them. I have a few, or a couple at least, videos on how I start delphiniums and from seed. And these just are a gorgeous addition to the garden. Now, this year they've grown shorter. Could be that we've had some really cool summer. Another thing blooming beautifully right now are these macrophylla hydrangeas, or the big leaf hydrangeas. These ones are endless summer. They're a raspberry color. I can't remember the exact name of them. Gorgeous. These do better for me than other big leaf hydrangeas because we get late freezes, and oftentimes that will kill the flower heads of regular ones that bloom on old wood. These bloom on old wood and new wood. So I am always guaranteed pretty much blooms every year with them. I have this one here. And then further back, I have another one. These were Lowe's bargain rack find. They were pretty shriveled up, cost me $7, and they have been tremendous in my garden. That was about 3 years ago. So this is the third year. They're in pots, they're in containers. I didn't know how well they would do here in this spot, and they seem to love it. And even though they're in pots, I think I'll leave them in pots because they're doing great. And then if I decide later I wanted to move them, I could. But yeah. Some beautiful hydrangeas for the late summer garden. Now over here, let's talk about this bed. This is my circle garden. These are my Dollar Tree petunias that I grew from seed. And yeah, they're not performing the way I wanted them to. They keep getting tall. They don't drape. They just get tall. And I had cut them back once to 6 inches, and they filled out again. They're kind of obscuring. Here I have dahlias. Beautiful dahlias in the center, which I do need to deadhead. I got a few dead ones I need to deadhead. But dahlias, that's a beautiful one for the late summer garden for me. They bloom really late because, like I said, of our cool conditions, cool nights. And yeah, beautiful for the August garden here. And these daisies are pretty much going to get pulled out. And yeah, and I'm going to do something different. This bed just didn't do what I wanted it to do. I'm thinking next year I'm going to put a stacked stone fountain here. And that's going to take the place. This is just too busy for this garden. So there's going to be a lot of changes this garden next season. So stick around until then. You can see what I'm going to do back here instead of what I have done this year, which is not a whole lot because of moving in the old greenhouse, or moving where my greenhouse is going to be. Getting the new greenhouse has taken priority over taking care of things back here. Back here is pretty much taking care of itself. I will do a full video tour of what's going on here and how even just leaving it alone is beautiful and doing well. So one more thing, I'll show you some more dahlias that are over there and doing gorgeous right now. But see that beautiful dahlia down in there? It's kind of hard for me to get back there. I have to step on this flower bed. Isn't that a beauty? Now, if you didn't know this already, I have to plant my dahlias in pots in the ground. And that's to prevent the gophers from eating, and the gophers absolutely love the tubers. and I didn't want that. And what makes it nice having them planted in the containers is that come fall, after the first freeze, I pull them out of the ground, cut them back, and I just stick them in the greenhouse, and they overwinter beautifully. And next spring, bring the pots out, and then I stick them in the ground. And that's it. That's how I grow beautiful dahlias here. And these will be gorgeous all through August and September, and maybe even through October, because our first frost date's usually mid-October, but the last couple of years it's not come until November. So, and here's my beautiful white swan echinaceas here. Gorgeous. Well, flower friends, I missed a few, so I'm going to tell you about them now. And that is Verbena bonariensis. For me, it just really starts coming into really good bloom in August, and I'll show you a little bit of that. And then my milkweed really comes into full bloom at this late date in August. What's August 5th? Yes, and one that I don't know if you can find it at your local garden center, but I would highly recommend it, is Echinacea, which is a cross between a Rudbeckia, Black-eyed Susan, and Echinacea. And the one I'm going to show you has just been a tremendous bloomer. The color changes as it matures, but this has been I haven't deadheaded it at all, and it's been blooming for like 8 weeks. 6 weeks. I'll have to look at my videos, but it's been blooming a long time. So, and it's been a tremendous grower for me. It is in a raised bed that's protected because around here the gophers love Rudbeckias, and I wanted to make sure it had a chance and not be eaten. So those were my extras I had to add on. I don't know if you can see all of this, but here is where this arbor has gone. This is a new spot. And my plans, just so you know, is I'm going to put the test D'Iberville roses that are at the beginning of my rose cottage garden on either side of this arbor and have them climb over. I think that will be a great introduction or pathway into the secret cottage garden. And even though it's a mess right now, it's still beautiful because of everything that's blooming. But I just wanted to tell you that so you can stay tuned for that transformation and all the gorgeousness that's going to happen there. So thank you so much for coming along with me on this video today. Tour of what is doing great in the August garden and things you may want to incorporate into your garden to bloom beautifully in August and September and on through first frost. All right, I'll see you in my next video.